Welcome to Collective SOULversations. I'm Jody Jones, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this amazing journey exploring spirituality, healing, and personal growth. With over 15 years of experience as a psychic medium and energy healer, I've made it my mission to help people connect with their true selves, and I can't wait to share this journey with you. In every episode, I chat with incredible guests who bring their own unique stories and insights to the table. We dive into different tools and practices that can help support you on your path of self discovery. So, whether you're just starting out or you've been in this journey for a while, Collective SOULversations is all about creating a friendly and welcoming space for us to explore the mysteries of the soul together. So, grab your favorite cup of tea, get comfy, and let's dive into this enlightening adventure together. Hey, everybody, welcome to Collective SOULversations. I'm your host, Jody Jones, and I have a very interesting person with us today that I'm happy to be able to introduce you guys to. I will read his bio and then we will bring him on. You guys will get to know him with me. We'll explore it. So, I have Xavier Dagba on the show today. And so, Xavier is a shadow integration facilitator, trauma-informed transformation guide, and teacher. His work is about self-liberation, and he finds deep fulfillment in assisting light workers and thought leaders dissolve the hidden forces that keep them from shining bright and unleashing their expression. His work is psycho-spiritual and bridges Jungian psychology, somatic experiencing, spiritual wisdom, and transformational coaching. Wow. Welcome, Xavier. Welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Jody. Hearing you reading my bio, it trumps my ego. It makes me sound important. So I hope I can live up to all of that now.
Well, I feel like there's that bio really kind of just touches the surface for you because of course me being who I am and what I do, I kind of tuned into you energetically before we started just to, get a little bit of prepping and priming. And Spirit called you a wordsmith.
Hmm.
Is that somewhere? Is that like, do you have that written somewhere? Because, and I'll show you and I'll explain to you why. I want to know what you feel about, though, being called a wordsmith. What does that mean to you?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't put this in this bio because I wrote it several years ago and I was feeling very, I don't know, a little sensitive, insecure about using the word wordsmith. And I think it was a year ago or two that I put it on my Instagram bio instead. I added there wordsmith. And for me, there's a little bit of like feeling arrogance using that word because the way I understand the word, it is very powerful. It's not just about how you put words together when you're writing and when you putting your thoughts out there. It's also really understanding deeply the frequency. It's like the energetic arrangement that happens with not just the arrangement of the words, but also the intention that gets infused in them. The words themselves already carry power, but the person who is also using the words and arranging them in a specific way, infused with a specific intent, that's truly to me what wordsmithing is. It's not just the words themselves, because that would be flat. So I've been feeling very sensitive around that for a long time, and I'm just learning to embrace it, you know. That's where I am in my relationship with the wordsmith.
Wow. I am so excited the way that I'm so glad that I didn't go through and tell you what they showed me and that you gave me that because that's really kind of exactly what they said. So they wanted, us to remind everybody that words carry frequencies, right? We've known this since the beginning of time, since language was created. And there's also a lot of, programming that happens in the frequency of words. And so they showed me that a wordsmith it's actually a title, like a job title in the spiritual realm, apparently. And so somebody who is a wordsmith has the ability to literally unpack the vibrational frequencies of words so that we can explore them and heal through them and grow through them. So that's, and they're giving me huge goosebumps on this. So that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. And it's been frightening, to be quite honest. Big part of what I share and teach is helping people embrace the repressed brightness, the repressed light. And that relationship with words and also with language has been part of that for me. Um, you know, there has been this weird attraction because I don't know, all the teachers that I've had when I was in elementary school oriented me towards the hard sciences, mathematics and all of that. But I've had this hidden love story with words
Right.
that it's only now that I'm allowing myself to really explore. So yeah.
It's very, very interesting. And I feel like part of your journey must have been because they show me that you're very academic. Like, so you're very, right? Like, I need to figure things out, need to know things, very organized, very all of that, which is very interesting because the industry that you're in is kind of the opposite, right? It's very much of having to blend the left and the right brain together so it's, becomes cohesive to everything. So I feel like that part of you needed to have that part of you in order to do what you're doing. So tell us a little bit, like, how did you get into doing, like, obviously I can feel energetically as a soul to be a words, you've been chosen as that. But tell me, what was the leading up? How, like, take us back. Where did Xavier come from? Why are you not working, in a law firm or some other place?
Yeah. Well, I was born and raised in Cameroon. It's a country in the central region of Africa. And, at 24, um I get a scholarship for a PhD in economics and statistics. So I come to Montreal. And the basic, when I was much younger, I remember as soon as I could speak, I told my parents that I was going to be a priest. My family was a Catholic family. I told them I was going to be a priest, and then I got closer to just the Catholic Church and everything, all the concepts, the beliefs there, the fear of God, having to be afraid of. That was a big thing for me. Like all the other incongruences, I could brush them off. All the other incongruences that I saw within the Catholic Church, I'm not talking about the kind of like big reveals of like abuse and everything that has been going on, but I'm talking about the incongruences about the canons of the religion itself, which it was just so weird. As the kid I was, as a child, he was like, why should we be afraid of God? Like, really? I don't wanna that was a big thing for me. So I come to an age where I'm like, a lot of things, that was the drop of water that made the whole thing just like fall apart. I was like, no, if this is it, if that's what I'm about to teach, then I'm out. I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Right.
So I must become this kind of like a little rebel. My parents would send us out of the house on Sundays to go to church, and I would just go for a walk, for a nice walk. Um, and my siblings would be like, "Well, we didn't see you inside we didn't see you at church." I was like, "Well, I was sitting in the back," but I was really outside, just like walking and coming back later. So there was a little bit of that, and I was what age? I was probably age 10, like. So since I was younger, there was just this part of me that felt like there is more about the story we've been told about the divine, and I wanted to find out. But that wasn't what led my journey back then. I just wanted to be a good boy. I just wanted to have good grades at school. I wanted to do well. I saw my parents work hard for us, for their six kids in a environment that could be really challenging and hard. So to me, it was just like, I got to do better. I got to do better. I got to do better. So I that's what I tried to do. Reach for the highest grades, put my head down on having these grades, get the masters in statistics, economics, get offered I get offered a scholarship opportunity, full paid scholarship at the University of Montreal, and I accept it. And here I am in Canada. And then I was already in a lot of like spiritual work. I was already, like the Louise Hayes, the Wayne Dyers, people like that. I was already reading the material back in 2006, 2005. And when I come in Canada in 2013, a few months after it was just like this I'm gonna call it radical soul intervention, which is okay, what else do you have as an excuse now? And I was in a PhD and I just felt like my heart was gone. I didn't have anything else to animate the PhD research, even though my grades were great. I finished the first year, I had great grades. I was like, it was a pain to to get to the campus. It was so difficult. And at some point, it didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to people I loved. And, they felt pretty hurt, especially my family, my parents. People thought I was crazy. I dropped out. 2014, I decide I'm out. And that was a really difficult decision. And it just created a whole lot of like alienation, being here in Canada, feeling alone and feeling like maybe I just made the greatest mistake of my life.
Right.
Um, and I've only had myself to rely on for the first time in my life. So I've got to figure this big mess out. I got
Right.
to find a way to sort this out. And this calling inside that is so unclear. It's so freaking unclear. I just know I no longer belong there. But now what? It's like, yes, I followed the call, but now what? And I stayed in that kind of now what zone for a long time, trying to figure this out, trying to romance that calling, there was just like a whole bunch of like shadow stuff that came up. The estrangement with family, the conflicts that emerged there, them feeling betrayed. I'm feeling dropped out and feeling like, rejected in my own as well. And I just have so there's just a period of navigating that I'm not calling it Dark Night of the Soul. I call it Dark Night of the Ego. So yeah, that's how the journey went. And I want to say to sum things up, how there's a surrender to, we often talk about surrender to our light, and we often don't realize how much that comes up with an equal surrender to darkness. What I mean by that is not necessarily evil. It's just surrender to the call of fears that are inviting us to face them, the call of ancient wounds that are emerging because of the choice we made to honor our brightness, the call of all of these kind of like ancient pains and aches that our emotional body was dragging for so long. And now your light is saying, I actually need you to travel light, meaning I need you to drop a lot of that emotional dead weight, which was part of my journey as well. So, yeah. That's how I can summarize the that arc of my life.
Wow. And because, because of the way that you are able to communicate, you make it sound like it's a beautiful experience. But I know, having had the same kind of going through, it's not easy, right?
Mhm.
It's not, it's funny that you say that you wanted to be a priest because when I was a little girl, I was in grade 5, again, Catholic family, Catholic school system, all of the same thing. I felt I could feel a magic in that, like in all of that. And I had a beautiful teacher in grade 5, Sister Eiley, who was this redheaded Irish woman who was a nun. And that was it. I was like, I'm going to be a nun. Like, look at how beautiful she is and how warm and, you know, engaging and smart. That's what I wanted to be. And then it was the same thing. I got into high school and I was like with my Christian ethics teacher saying things like, I don't understand this though. If God is all forgiving, why is there a hell? Like, what's the purpose of a hell? So it was the same things, right? And it's interesting because his answer at that time was because people don't forgive themselves,
Hmm.
which I didn't fully understand, being 15 years old and hearing that. But now when I fully understand it, and what you're talking about and unpacking your darkness, right? Being able to let go of, so forgiving yourself and releasing yourself of your sins and your guilt and your all of that. That's kind of what you had to go through to, rise above it all, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And there was just a great deal of unacknowledged shame that was there, that I was carrying. I had when I was younger, I had this idea that I made of myself that I wanted to be an upstanding person in all the ways possible. And here I was, I committed to something. I did not see it through. I was the reason why my parents were in like deep pain and like, so the inner critic inside of me just went cracking down. It was like inner termination. So there was just like a whole lot of pain and shame that was just being exercised to a certain degree. And also an extension of the identity that I had created for myself. I often say that, if you want to embrace your hero's journey, there is also a villain's journey that you have to equally embrace because in the eyes of people who knew me, I became a fool and a villain. Because there were so many hopes that I felt like I was carrying that I just like let down. I just allowed
Mm-hmm.
these hopes to go crashing down so that I could follow a path that is mine. And I knew some people would get disappointed. I knew some people would get hurt. And I also knew that if I didn't do that, it would feel like the greatest act of self-betrayal. So as I made that choice, I was equally certain of two things. I am making a choice that is honoring my soul, and I am making a choice that will hurt some people I love, even though I don't intend to hurt them. So I'm
Right.
gonna be at the same time hero for my soul, villain for people around me. And I had to sell myself that choice. I spent
Mm-hmm.
3 months not going to school. I hadn't given up yet. I was still involved in the program. It was from when the second year of the PhD started up until the Christmas of 2020 2014. I was just in that loop of depression. And
Right.
and and then I was just like, I cannot do it.
Yeah.
And I gave up. So
Yeah.
yeah, there was just embracing there's just this polar energy. It's like one of the most important and pivotal decisions in your life can also be the one that can bring up and surface a whole lot of repressed pain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it was for me.
Yeah, it's so it's a lot of self-discovery, right?
Yeah.
That's, one of the reasons why we come here. Let me know what your feelings on this, because just as you were talking and, showing the people that you were feeling like you were disappointing and letting down, and uh do you feel like part of, again, going back into the vibrational aspects of things, do you feel like there's a projection though that we do that is much more about us and our stuff and not so much about their stuff? But we project it and then receive it back so that we're really feeling like, oh, they're unhappy with me and they're, because they just keep saying the morals of it, the morals of it. So was that a big thing for you? Was like this moral stability that you needed to live up to?
Oh, that was a huge thing. That was
Yeah.
a huge thing. I had to realize it for myself a little later. Like I was in this state, in this place where I had internalized so many values that pursuing the path I was choosing was kind of requiring of me to let go of. But I was so attached to, I want to say, the values that I internalized from them. So I assumed that if I was going to live my life in a way that doesn't honor these values, then they would be irritated, angry, and like disappointed in all of that. And they reflected that to a certain degree. And I probably received that in a way that was like hugely amplified by my own perception. So there was a great projection in there. There was a great
Mhm.
projection. Sometimes looking back, I think, oh, it could have been maybe it could have been easier if I wasn't so camped, in that side of like underneath all these projections, but there was a huge, great deal of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that becomes a theme for us though, because we think, oh, I got through that big one, but we'll often see it's a continuing in relationships. All of the people that we attract into our lives, the interactions, they're really helping us to discover who we are and, the duality of it all for sure.
Yeah.
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 And
So that was very revealing as a time for me. Yeah.
yeah. And then so obviously you came through that with a different version of, of who you are energetically in some ways and knew there was something more. And then so how did you get into knowing that you needed to be of service and help others?
Well, that I already knew, but I had no idea what it was going to look like. And I
Right.
started basically look for it. And one of the agreements that I made with myself at some point was I am just going to do that as imperfectly as I can. Um, I mean, and I just started really pursuing the things that I initially really loved. I was already into spirituality and all these modalities. I was already so connected to all of that, but I felt insecure. And I was just like, okay, what is a proxy? Like, what is something that is close enough that I can see myself doing? So I went for health and fitness coaching. And, at some point we had a gym in Montreal, and I knew it wasn't quite it. But even the clients that I had back then, we spent so much more time talking about their lives, their emotional issues, more than the meal plans and the workout plans that I was
Right.
giving to them.
Yeah.
So it was more about them and how their inner world was functioning, more than, more than the plans I was creating. And I've had a few that actually said, you know what? You know why I keep coming for the follow-ups and stuff? It's just because of the 45 minutes of conversation that we're gonna have. And that does a lot for me.
Right.
And it started becoming the nudge because I was also a little insecure about so many things. There were these voices in my mind, just like, well, life coaching, like coaching, where is that even coming from? It's like this is so new. It's not even part of your conditioning. There was
Right.
this rewiring of conditioning, and then here you are, a guy that comes from Cameroon, like how are people right here going to relate to you? It's like you you need you need so much more life under your belt and all of that. So I had so many insecurities to work through. And through that the surrender became gradual. And I want to say around 2016 when it became very, very obvious that I often say people often think repressing trauma is heavy, repressing pain is heavy. I've had the experience your calling and your light can be the most heavy thing you will ever do because that's something that at some point made me physically ill. And, between the years 2016, 2017, I've had severe asthma that came out of the blue. For someone my age, that was like that physically active or healthy, the doctors did not understand what was going on there. But I could feel that I had this huge resistance to life itself.
Mhm.
It's like I had just given a partial yes to where life wanted to lead me. And the resistance that I was feeding, because I know I was actively feeding the resistance, it was just creating so much internal strain. And what I realized much later, as I embrace, how did it actually start? We decide in 2018 we're gonna shut down the gym. I'm out. I just decide I'm out, and that I'm gonna transition my coaching from health coaching to support people even more with their journey of shadow integration, their journey of becoming more, living more from their fullness. I just decided I'm gonna start writing about it. I'm just gonna start writing about it. And in 2018, when I built this new website and I start this new blog and I start writing about it, guess what? All the asthma symptoms just fade away. Like
Wow.
weirdly enough,
Right,
I
right,
know I no longer need all these puffers and whatever. There's just a great deal of like um reconciliation and healing that happens within my family of origin. And we conceive our first son in 2018, and it was just that click. It was like, you know what, I'm not going to be an example of a dad who chose not to go after what he really is passionate about
right.
because of fear, because
Right.
of like because of all the fears. It doesn't matter the names that I had given to these fears. I'm just gonna go. I started writing some more. I started shifting more of my practice. I started telling my old clients, you know what? I know I've been offering this health coaching for the longest time. But what I'm doing right now is shifting, and I'm gonna start doing more of this. And I lost a lot of them,
Right.
and also started having some more people interested in the new direction that I was taking, and basically was building it um gradually in that fashion. That's what the journey looked like for me, if I'm going to summarize it.
And I love the words that keep sticking out though, and they're showing me is that you decided to start it imperfectly. So you
Yeah,
decided that with that, you know, not having reached, the highest level of being the spiritual guru or you decided this is part of my journey and I understand this healing now, of course, because my physical body is showing me that something is wrong. I'm, that lack of communication within, there has to be a way through this. And so through this, I'm going to show up and help others wherever they are on their path. So that's beautiful. And I feel like, the idea of the just going to the teachings of traditional Chinese medicine, of course, with the lungs, it's sadness and grief.
yeah,
And I feel like for you, it was like that, okay, so I'm going to halfway do it. But then your soul was like, well, no, we need to fully do it. Like we're literally feeling sadness and grief about the stifling of who we are, right?
yeah,
And how
yes.
that opened up for you. Yeah.
Oh, there was a great deal. There was a great deal of sadness and grief. And also, when I look back, there was a part of me that really wanted to be a PhD in economics.
Right.
I had
Yeah.
worked hard for it.
Right.
I had applied for the scholarship. I really wanted that at some point in
Right.
my life. And then I shifted just like that.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
felt like a walking experience. It just felt like at some moment, more of your soul is kind of being downloaded inside of you, and my interest just like
Yeah.
radically shifted. I could
Right.
no longer open a book of economics, and I had tutoring at some point where I had to go and give classes to the year one or year two at university, and I was just looking at these kids, and I was not there. I
Right.
was not there. And one
Yeah.
day the dean of the department, he had a conversation with me. He was like, "We don't feel you. What is going on?" And I was just like, "I don't know if I can bring myself back."
Yeah.
And he was like, "This doesn't make sense. You
Right.
have a
Right. You're
golden
doing so good.
opportunity."
Why would, yeah.
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 And I was like, "Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I feel like I am literally going crazy. Do you need any kind of support?" He's like, "I don't know. I don't feel like I need support.
Right.
I just feel like I'm moving through a phase." So it
Yeah.
was all that. And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
mentioned deciding to start imperfectly. I don't think I had any other choice where I was. It
Right.
was just this radical urge of like, and I think these are the two extremes to reconcile for people who are so devoted to. I see myself as somebody who is devoted to truth, and I have a high value on pursuing that. It's reconciling that this thing that is so sacred to you, your gifts, your brightness, your highest truth, and whatever, you have
Mhm.
to reconcile it with like expressing it imperfectly.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
like that thing that you see as so sacred, and that thing that you want to express you want to express it with perfection. And yet
Right.
there's the invitation to actually express it imperfectly, and that's the way you refine it. So this kind of like mind fuckery a little bit. I had to
Yes.
embrace that and be like, you know what? I'm gonna make peace with that. I'm gonna risk looking like a fool. I'm gonna risk looking like somebody who doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm
Right.
gonna risk looking like an imposter and all of that, and I'm gonna keep finding my voice. And that was the journey, really.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Let me ask you this, just because they're showing me. So, if we talk about, and I love the way they loop conversations. So, if we talk about the whole idea of you intuitively having this understanding about words and frequency and programming in words and language, if we take you back to your roots, like your ancestral roots, I'm imagining that there must be like healers and elders and that, like, if we go back. But it's interesting how they think that progress is the academia of everything. So forget all that magic that forget about that how to heal people with energy and words and wisdom and guidance. Go to school and get a diploma and get it, and it's hardwired, right? Especially
Yeah.
for you. And so I feel like it's like you had to go through all that, you have to have the PhD, you have to get your master's, you have to, that paper has to show who you are.
Yeah.
But your ancestry all the way back was like, no, you already have the magic. You already have everything that you need to do what you're doing.
Yes. And it's interesting that you bring that because a lot of the how do I put it? A lot of the attributes that now get used into the work I'm doing, where I'm gonna use the word demonized, but probably feared to a certain degree. Because when many countries in Africa are really, really young. They're
Hmm.
very, very young. So when religion comes to Africa, everything that was there before gets basically kind of vilified a little bit. So
Right.
my family has always been walking in the in between world where my dad, even my mom, they 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 are really into the religion, the Catholic religion, because it also brought to, in Africa, this idea that there's a supreme force, a supreme divinity above the healer of the guy in the neighborhood that wants to hurt you because that person is envious of you. Well, many people don't realize what was going on in Africa before the organized religion come, and the reason why many Africans actually embraced the organized religion. Came Organized religions came with this idea of like divinity beyond everything else, beyond like um my humanness, your humanness. Before that, there was a strong connection with the spirit world, but people were just like, you are only as protected as the spirits you work with are powerful, or you are only as protected as the sorcerer or the witch that you are working with is powerful. So it was almost leaving you with a feeling of unsafety. Kind of like,
Right.
what if that person that doesn't like me finds a healer or a spirit, I don't know, a spirit or a witch that is stronger than mine? It's like that's Africa beyond like organized religion.
Right.
So there was a strong attunement with the world of the unseen and beautiful healers. And there were many in my family, especially on my dad's side. But anyways, religion came, and then they were seduced by this idea of, an omnipotent God.
Right.
It feels safe. It's like, oh, if I just pray to this omnipotent God, then I'm safe from all the dark shit that somebody else can go and attempt against me. And at the same time, we also know that the gifts that we had, like our attunement with the unseen and the way we are able to help each other's heal, there is truth there as well. So my family kind of walked in between.
Right.
My dad, especially, deep fear of his roots because my dad is not from Cameroon. He's from Benin, which is like West Africa, epicenter of voodoo. He's
Right.
terrified of many of these things.
Yes.
And at the same time, there's this love of God. So as a kid, I used to have a lot of dreams of like and that the energy that I perceived felt like his grandmother that was like chasing me with a weird Black Panther. And I've had that recurring dream for like a long time in my life, a long, long time.
Right.
So when I'm finally here, um, the recurring dream around that period, 2016, maybe 2017, the dream is like there, it's coming up. And
Yeah.
then I was working with that mentor, and he had a suggestion. He was like, the next time, he offered me a mental to mentally rehearse, just in a visualization. And next time that person or whoever it is chases you, turn around and face that person and ask of that person to speak, to tell you why she's been chasing you for decades.
Right.
And which is one thing that I practiced the next time I was actively dreaming. And
Yeah.
then I turned around and I looked at this persona and I'm just like, I'm not afraid of you. Tired of running, blah, blah, blah. I was in my own
Right.
panic state, but I'm just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you
What do you
know,
want?
what
Yeah.
you want? Like,
Yeah.
speak up.
Right.
And everything that came up was, I am not evil.
Wow.
I am not evil. I am not evil. I couldn't hear the voice of that woman initially,
Wow.
but it was just like over and over, over and over. I am not evil. I never really talked it through with my father because he would be terrified, but the impression that I have, it's a knowingness. I'm not sure. I have no way to fully validate it because I never met his grandmother. It feels like this was his grandmother. And I've had a very close connection to this energy since then. And what came up from it is in our lineage, we know how to hold insanity. And what that means is, and I don't know if I fully know what that means yet, but how I've seen this in my practice so far is in the moments where somebody is usually dealing with a great deal of pain and they feel like they're going to lose their mind. It's that critical moment where we often feel like suffering or pain is so intense to a certain degree where we're going to lose it.
Right.
And it has come up over and over that the ability to just be with one person as they go through that sacred threshold where the
Hmm.
mind needs to completely break down so that a new structure can be built
Right.
is
Yeah. It's the
something that
breakthrough.
is something that I can trust myself to be able to hold
Right.
in people.
Yeah.
And it has been a great contribution. So basically, what you mentioned, which is the knowingness, the ancestral knowingness, and that's only a part of it that I'm able to tune into at the moment. It
Hmm.
just came up to be reclaimed when I made that shift to let go of academia, to start pursuing this thing that I didn't even know. I didn't know what shadow work was. I had no freaking idea about Jung and like who the hell
Right.
is Carl Jung,
Right.
and
Right.
all of that, like many years ago. So the pieces started coming together and making sense. And I'm just continuing to learn how to honor that nudge, that feeling. And yeah.
Yeah, and I mean I can definitely feel, the ancestry around you very close with your paternal grandmother, right? I don't know if your dad has ever said to you, but energetically you guys share a very similar vibrational energy. So she's definitely very much one of your active guides. They do keep showing me though that, and there's, such again, and it's like the symbolism in words, but the symbolism in symbols, as in, the big black panther, right?
Yeah.
And for you, I feel like that's like part of that, the shadow part of you, like the inherited darkness of your ancestry that creates that inner turmoil, right? You're still healing. And this is a big thing for many of us souls right now is we are here and we've chosen to heal lineages. So not just
Mm,
our shit. We are now healing, so much that we don't even understand. Like, there's no university class that we can sit in and and be like,
absolutely.
how deep is my ancestry pain? What were they suffering from? And why am I the chosen one that's coming to go and do this work? Um, but yeah, like it's Wow, the stuff that they can unpack that you're here to do. I feel like this, you're like just kind of in the beginning of your your the journey, which is wow.
Yeah, and it can be pretty overwhelming at times too. And it's also something that I continually make peace with the extent of how of where the work wants to go, and the I feel like it's requiring such a great deal of humility and yes, the level of surrender it requires. Sometimes it is irritating,
Right.
quite frankly. It's like sometimes it can be irritating. Sometimes there's this part of me that just wanna catch a break, to be quite honest.
Right. Like give me the answers. Like show me, like tell me what do you want me to be doing? Where do you want me like just make it easy.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that has been part of the instructions, the way I'm kind of relating to that in general. And it's been an interesting journey. And sometimes, there's a lower part of me that complains about it. And I don't know if I would have things any other way. But there is basically it's a new way of living that
Yeah.
I have to embrace, a new way of living, a new relationship with life.
Right.
Um, yeah, I might
Well,
not
they're
have
just,
the
and for
language at
you,
the
it's
moment.
it's a re it's a rewiring of the brain. They're just saying to me because, and I'm sure our listeners will relate to this, many of them who, either you're very left-brained or you're very right-brained. But in order to do this, when you answer the calling of being of service, it's those two worlds have to blend and merge together, and it's not an easy task.
No,
Right?
no.
Like that's, yeah. So you are literally having to rewire your brain, show up for the people that you are teaching because you are still teaching from your experience, but then you're also still continuing on your ascension, your soul's growth. So it's a
Mm.
lot, right?
Yes. And with that came, another initiation, parenting came. We in 3 years we had 3 kids that came. And I was
Beautiful.
just like, holy crap, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's
And that changes who you are again. It's like now you step into the role of father, and yeah,
yeah,
wow.
it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
So it's been I would say the last since 2018, the journey has been embrace radical surrender. That has felt like my way to survive, like
Right.
radical surrender. And I don't know any other way to move through life at the moment.
Yeah.
That's how I get to live. It's like I get to embrace radical surrender.
And so let
And
us let us know what does radical surrender, wordsmith, unpack radical surrender for us. What does it
yeah.
mean?
Oh, it means yes. I wish I could bring up a big old talk about what radical surrender is, but it's just YES. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
As simple as that. It's like,
Yeah.
yes. It's like, can you move at the speed of your knowing, the speed of your highest truth, as best you can in any given moment? I am human. I throw fits. I have my own spiritual tantrums where I look at spirit in the eye and I say, go fuck yourself. Like, I
Right.
need a break. I have my moments where I throw a tantrum.
Right.
And at the same time, I also know that, if I really want to create a life of ease and grace, I'm gonna have to let me put it this way. The way I've learned to embrace radical surrender is inevitably resistance will come up. Inevitably, it comes up when a decision needs to be made, when you're invited to stir the boat in a different direction, and sometimes resistance comes up. And what I've realized for myself is the yes cannot only be a yes to the higher self part of me that is saying, okay, now we get to go in that direction. The yes also needs to be directed at the part of me that says, I'm not going there. Meaning, I've realized that in the embrace of radical surrender, I also need to bring my attention to the aspects that are saying no. And I have to go in there and say no because. what about this is a no is. I gotta lean in there. I gotta explore what the
Hmm.
resistance really has to say because I don't want to move forward in a disembodied state. I don't
Right.
want to move forward with like an aspect of me that says, I don't want my evolution to be some form of spiritual bullying from my higher self to my kind of lower selves because
That's
it's
good.
usually an integrated evolution. And at some point, I've realized that when I move from that place where my inner knowing says this, and I have a great deal of resistance in my body, and I kind of force myself to just like pursue this, the frequency within me is so there's such a clash, and it's
Hmm.
unsustainable to move forward within that state of clash for so long
Right.
that it creates some sort of like external clash that will usually cause me to slow down. And what I usually do is in that perspective of radical surrender is if the invitation is clear and a part of me inside says no, I will tend to that part and see, okay, what are the needs? What are the fears? What are the emotional conflicts? And let us address them. Let me find a way to address them in a way that doesn't cause me to say no to this calling. How can we take care of this? It's usually very conversational at this point with for me right now.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay, this my body is reacting to this, and I want to know why. What is going on? What
Yeah.
scares me about this is what pain from the past I am projecting into this experience is, and where that pain is now located in my body is. And can I allow myself to go in there to meet what is there, to feel it, to experience it, and to see what does it need to get to completion? Can I feel it to completion? What are the needs that I feel like embracing this desire, embracing this calling? Will cause me to reject or to abandon and to disregard? What are the new ways I can address this need without shutting down my light? And I really just bring myself there. So
Yeah.
when I say yes to this part and we just like brainstorm new ways to address what is here, what the body is saying, or what my quote
Right.
unquote wounded self is saying, I'm feeling panicky. When I'm able to address that and I say yes there too, it's like I have so much more power that now comes from this place that can be dedicated to creating whatever I want to create.
Yeah.
So the yes cannot be a partial yes right now for me. It needs to be like an a full yes. It's like, okay, yes to the soul part, and also if there's a part of me that is rioting inside, okay, we need to talk. What is it gonna
Right.
take for you to say
Yeah.
yes?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to move forward disembodied.
That's beautiful. And I feel like, one of the biggest things that many of us are working on or have worked on at some point is the whole mind body disconnect.
Yeah,
And I feel like that. So, and you've just said it perfectly. When there's, energy in the body that is a hard no for us. And, and for me, I went through, it was a couple of years ago where I had a complete burnout. My physical body got completely sick. And it was because exactly what you're saying. I was pushing down my nose. I was not taking the time to go in and have a conversation with my nose and be like, okay, so let me hear your side of this. Instead, I was like, no, I've got a job to do. I've got to go and do this. And I was pushing myself. And when you were talking, they were just showing me, you know, I feel like this goes back to, our inner child and, if a child comes up to you and you know this as a father, you know, and your child is saying, this doesn't feel good. Some things you don't go, oh, just ignore it. Come on, we've got things to do. Right? Because when you do that, it's that chaotic environment that is created. And
yeah,
so many of us are trying to create in that chaos,
yeah.
which, is a recipe for disaster, right?
Yeah. I call it spiritual inner bullying, and
Yeah,
I don't know that it works. It's like we understand it's really challenging when when you know what your intuition is saying, when you have that guidance gets very clear, and
right.
deep down there's a massive fear.
Yeah.
That's a place of great suffering for many spiritual seekers. It's
Yes,
like finding ways to reconcile both
right.
is really I mean, that's the place where many get stuck. That's the place where sometimes I have to sit myself down and be like, okay, okay,
Yes. Yeah.
tell me what it is. What's going on? Talk to me.
Yeah.
What
Because you
scares
can
me
get
about
stuck
this
in
thing?
one or the other, right? Like you can get stuck in the nose of it.
Yes.
They can freeze you and put you into that holding cycle where, okay, now we're just sitting in the basement for 10 years unpacking this
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really finding the right balance with being a little bit outrageous in and also tending to what and what I mean by being a little bit outrageous, it's not necessarily going out there and doing something that's like out of the norm, kind of crazy, silly. I know. I mean, and it's gonna feel outrageous because you are challenging your own repression. You're challenging that energy that makes you feel like it's not fully okay to go out there and express what you wish to express. So to a
Right.
certain degree, it's going to feel outrageous. Even the slightest things might feel outrageous when there is fear in there. So there's
Yes.
this balance of practicing being a little outrageous, bold and courageous. And sometimes I have people that I take to, I'm like, okay, this week we're gonna practice that attribute. And I want you to feel how every cell in your body is responding when you do this thing that is a little bit defiant. It needs to
Hmm.
be defiant to your internalized conditioning that is
Right.
telling you you cannot do this. So I want you to feel this. And as you're feeling this, you need to imprint that in your cells that it is okay. There's an intelligence within you that wants to hear it from you that doing this is actually okay. And then
Right.
after you've done this, I need you to tend to your scared self.
Yeah.
You know, I need
That's
you to tend to the part of you that will be freaking out.
right.
You know, that will
Yeah.
say, holy shit, you're exposing me to hurt, you're exposing me to this and this and this. I need you
Right.
to tend to that. So if
Right.
when people embrace like these two attitudes, I often see kind of really incredible shifts unfold.
Yeah. And I feel like, part of what you're doing is you're literally like reaching your hand out and taking them and saying, I know that that's totally scary and you don't know what's on the other side of that and it might not work out and you might end up being like but let's just go and see what's over there, right?
Yeah,
Which I feel like that's one of the reasons why we do what we do is because everybody needs that helping. And it sounds like you've had some mentors in your life. I haven't. It's interesting the way my team has always done things. It's kind of been like we throw throw her in the water and see if she can swim. But every single time I'm putting my hand out to help somebody else with something, it's helping me as well because I'm like,
yes,
oh yeah, see when I take their hand and we walk across here, we didn't just spontaneously combust. We managed to get through it. And
yeah,
part of that they're just saying to me right now is we have to override the brain, the brain program, right? We need to
yeah,
show the brain this is okay. We're okay. This is gonna be all right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's a great part of it. Um, it's, I often call it, we have a big addiction to safety. Safety is a need. You
Yes.
know, it's
Yeah.
something that we need to feel within ourselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can become as well, a need can turn into an addiction. And I know not many people will want to hear this, but we can make of many, like the need for validation can turn easily into an addiction to validation,
Yes.
into form of emotional addiction to validation, to appreciation, maybe even to praise. So some question that I like to often ask myself, and usually when I work with people, I'll bring that up. It's like, let's make sure that it's only a need,
Mm-hmm.
not an addiction. Let's
Right.
make sure that it's only a need, not an addiction. Meaning, there are situations that are going to feel not fully safe. Like you going out there and expressing maybe your love, you going out there and sharing your art, you going out there and, starting this thing that you've been wanting to start and that your intuition has been inviting you to start for a long time. Can you allow yourself to awaken your body in that place? What I mean, I see it as a cellular awakening in the places that were once seen as unsafe. It's like a reclamation of territory. It's like inner territory where in the past it wasn't fully okay to allow yourself to stand there, to allow yourself to stand in the places where your heart was a little bit more open, where you allowed people to see you while you were at the same time connected to your spirit, to your own inner guidance. For many people, it's extremely unsafe because they were shamed for it growing up, they were mocked, they were ridiculed, and all of this. It's like, can we now reclaim that territory? Because that's how you are able to demonstrate to your inner guidance, to your higher self, even to your psyche, that you now are equipped to handle the friction, the
Mhm.
energetic friction that comes with embodying your brightness, embodying your light. So there's a
Right.
lot of like really demonstrating that to ourselves. Like I am able to withstand the the vulnerable exposure that comes with embodying my brightness, with embodying my light, with healing, with, I don't know, with telling somebody, hey, I love you. I'm interested in being in a relationship with you after heartbreak. There's a vulnerable exposure. And I
Right.
think embracing the next level of what it looks like for us to be brighter, to shine brighter, carries a lot of that kind of vulnerable exposure. And something that I'm receiving from you is to infuse more fun into it, to
Hmm.
infuse more delight into it. Um, which I have approached these kind of transformations for the longest time as being too much like warrior energy.
Right.
It's just like,
Right.
let's just go do
Yes.
this thing.
Yeah.
Whereas, laughter could also be invited powerfully in there.
Yeah. Have the playful side of you come into that.
Yeah.
So, what do you feel like? So, 2025 is such an interesting year energetically, right? For
Yeah.
everybody. What do you feel like will be like the theme for a lot of souls? Are you seeing this, and even in yourself maybe, of what our work is right now? What's like on our plate as far as our soul's ascension, mission, all of that?
Yeah. There are a few themes that come up for me. One of the themes is consolidation. What I mean by that is many people, one of the themes is consolidation. Many people have, and we're going to keep moving through these energetic initiations, but I feel like for the most part, the planet itself has gone through big, big, massive energetic initiations, and we are carrying energy we don't even know we are carrying at the moment. What I mean by that is like, imagine that you just have like um a silent a silent upgrade going on. It's like you had a house that had many, many, many different levels, and one big aisle of the house was not accessible for the longest time. It was just like completely out of reach. Even energetically, you couldn't even sense that. And you tried to enter that place for the longest time, and you tried many way, in many ways, shape, or forms. You just couldn't get in there. And there's something happens, maybe let's say an earthquake, and the door just like slightly opens, like the lock just gives. And one day you heard this kind of work, the door just opened. It was a weird noise, but you didn't necessarily pay attention and you just kept carrying on. You just carried on.
Yeah.
But the door is now open. That entire aisle is now completely open, waiting to be explored. I feel like this is where we are. There's a
Wow.
huge aisle, a massive aisle, and that could be perceived energetic level, DNA level. It doesn't matter the levels. I just feel like there's a massive aisle that has been opened, and that just we haven't fully noticed yet. But we just get to go and explore that. So, and with that shift, there's a consolidation that is required. I often feel like the unseen or spirit or higher selves or soul selves, our relationship to them adjusts very often. And we're invited to kind of like see, okay, what is new? What is new in this system? It's like the operative system has adjusted, but some of the traditional softwares, they are still there. When you move from Windows 11, from Windows 8 to Windows 11, you are still able to use Words, and
Right.
You're still able to use, I don't know, Microsoft Office or all of that, but there
Yeah.
are so many more capabilities, and I
Right.
really feel like a lot of that has happened. There's an
Yes.
amplification, and we have a projection of our normal that continues. So we kind of live in our own projection of normal, but there is more to it. Well, I wish I could find different words to express it because I can sense myself feeling highly conceptual at the moment. Um, but there's a big revival.
Yeah.
There's a
It's perfect.
consolidation.
You're saying it perfectly, like you are. You're painting the picture perfectly.
Yeah, what I'm sensing is a consolidation. It's like finding our roots in this new energy
Yeah.
that is invited, like really finding our roots in there. So that's the part of the consolidation. And as we find our roots in this new energy, there's a revival that is also ongoing. It's like happening
Mhm.
as we speak. And of course, it's different depending on who the person is and where they are at in their lives and in their
Right.
journey of
Right.
expansion. But even for people, let's say, even for people who are just opening the door and awakening right now, the energy is moving so fast that they will catch up so fast, depending on how open they are.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, they don't need to go back to spirituality 101 anymore. It's like this packet of energy that is just gonna come, and it's gonna become common sense. Even for kids that we are having right now, spirituality 101 is just like common sense.
Right.
So there's an invitation to be like, okay, explore the new aisle, see what is possible for the human here, see how you can see how the relationship to your higher self has increased, expanded. See now what are the possibilities of this new universe where you have something that mimics the field of energy that is connecting us all that we call internet. You have this kind of weird magic thing that has been designed that is revolutionary. It's revolutionary. It's like, see what you can create. And there is this acceleration.
Yeah.
So I see it, as a lot of that accelerated
Wow.
integration, amplified intuition, amplified, I don't know, imagination. We call it the age of AI, artificial intelligence. That's just one part of it. But that AI means so many things. Amplified intuition, amplified imagination, accelerated integration. I don't know. There is so much that AI stands for, and I'm not even talking about the technology part of it, even though the technology part of it plays a role in that. But
Right.
we are in the age of like
Yeah.
the amplification, if you wish. I don't
Yeah.
want to say AI because people will confuse it with the technology. Yes, it has a point, but that these are the words that are coming up, and yeah, and with all of that, there are people who will lose their ground and continue to lose their ground because when energy shifts so fast, there are a lot of mental imbalances that can unfold because when you are holding on to too much to what used to be, the
Hmm.
mental imbalances might come up. So I
Right.
also believe that we might see a darker polarity of people losing more of their ground.
Right. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
the ones who are willing to learn how to build a foundation on moving ground and actually who are willing to bring the ground into the heart. It's a weird relationship. It's like this kind of alliance built in here between your heart and the ground. This is, I don't know how I can express that. It's like when you can bring your ground within yourself, basically, and
Right.
have this heart of
Yes.
yours that has such an intimate relationship with the ground beneath us, but also the ground where you're standing on spiritually. There's an invitation to amplify the relationship with the heart that is the center of integration and to build a lot of things from there, and we becoming a heart-based civilization, and it might take time for it to be fully actualized, but this is part of what we are consolidating, reviving within ourselves, and the pace is just ridiculous. And I don't know how fast things want to go.
Yeah.
So
It's
now,
so cool in everything that you've said, because in spirit communicates to me a lot in my dreams, and so a lot of the things that you were just were huge validation. Just a lot of things that they were showing me about the AI, about the the ascension, the awakening, the and it's interesting that you were talking about the using a computer program, because they were showing me, so you've got the fancy Apple phone, and it's you look at a fancy Apple phone, and even children know how to do it. You know how to make the call, you know how to do the thing, like you know where all the button, there's no thinking involved in it, right? It just becomes
yeah,
automatic. But now what's happening is the phones have had all these upgrades. They have all of these now special things that they can do, and I feel like we're going to get pushed out of our comfort zone a bit, right? That's where you're talking about that instability of like, I look at my husband as an example. Tom is 60, and he'll, be on his, and I want to upgrade him to a new phone, and he just won't because he likes his old phone. But I feel like it's like this energy is coming in, and it's like, no, it's time for the upgrade. And as soon as you I feel like as soon as you come into with a little bit more playfulness and less academia of it, less like in my mind, less in like the programming, more in the remembering who we are, that we are souls and we are stardust and we are, all of this stuff, we can then pick up the phone and be like, wow, look at the worlds I create with this phone now. I can create worlds with this phone, right?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, it's hard to say what it's going to look like in the facts, but there's this energy that is coming and it's taking everything by storm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
that's interesting.
It's so interesting, such an interesting time to be here. And
Yeah.
that's again, and I feel like sometimes the spiritual community can too much, like too much of the memes, too much of the big posts of like, we're all getting downloaded and your manifestation is going to be, and you can manifest like all of this stuff, but they don't come in and say things like, you know what? You might feel like a part of you is going to be breaking off and dying literally. You may be like, feel like you're on your death's bed. You may be completely losing all your friends and all your family and all of they don't come out and say all that, but that is part of the process.
It is, absolutely. It is. And I think if anything, if there's anything that the last few years with, I want to say the COVID and what it has showed us is transformation can be, I don't want to say it can be a little shocking. It can be very
Unsettling for
shocking,
sure.
unsettling.
Yes.
It's a disruption mechanism.
Yes.
And I think that was part of the gift of that period. It was like, can you allow yourself to find your ground when the times are disrupted?
Hmm.
Um, so I feel like it's a skill we invited to learn how to practice, to really
Yes.
find our ground on unsteady terrain,
Yes.
an unsteady terrain because um it's just picking up. It's just, the the energy just keeps on picking up and increasing. And I feel like people who will give themselves the gift of greater emotional maturity, spiritual maturity, are the ones who will also embrace these shifts with more grace. Um, yeah, because they come to challenge what we perceive as status quo, and it makes sense that it may disturb a lot of the things that we take for granted. So yeah, there's just great disruption, and making peace with that energy of disruption is also part of the initiation. So yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. And I'm thankful for being able to, Spirit shows me what they call the big picture sometimes. And so I'm so thankful for being able to get like kind of that vision into, we're going to be okay. Like this is better than okay. There's something really good coming. And yeah, sometimes it does feel like we're taking, 2 steps forward and 10 steps back, but it's part of the process, right? It's
Mm.
part of that getting our sailor's legs.
Yeah,
You have to get
yeah,
used to that, being on the boat that's rocking all the time. And that's, I think, part of they're just saying part of our initiation. It's part
yeah,
of the initiation process. Yeah.
yeah,
That's,
yeah.
I'm so, this, I love this conversation because you've given so much validation. I love talking to souls who are truly connected, who are able to do that. And I thank you for that. So
Well, that's a pleasure.
how do clients reach you? Like, I'll put all your information and all of the stuff so you don't have to worry about the links and stuff. But do you have any upcoming events? What's on the horizon? What can we do to play with Xavier?
Well, people can find me on Instagram, on my website, xavierdagba.com. What is coming up? Um, well, later this year, there's a book that will be coming out, and it's interesting. We talked about wordsmith and how this book came about. That was really unforeseen. But it's coming out later this year. It's called Scars of Gold. Um, and yeah, it's about the things that I love to talk about: shadow integration, self-liberation, and yeah, so that's coming up later this week. And yeah, what else I mean, if people are more interested in my work, I have a private community, the Embodied Light Project, and that's the place where we do the best we can to create a bridge between shadow and light so that people can move forward in a more integrated fashion. And yeah, that's about it. That's
That's
about it. But
beautiful. I love that. And I feel like there's going to be so much more coming through you. I feel like as soon as you allow that playful side of you to kind of fully embrace the playground,
mm,
I feel like you're going to be like, a kid in a candy factory all over the place. So that's wonderful.
I
Well,
love
thank you
that
so
vision.
much for coming on.
It's been a pleasure, Jody. Thank you so much for
It
having me and
really
for your
has been a
energy.
pleasure. And I definitely want you to come back because I loved it so much. It was so much fun.
I loved it. I would be delighted to come back. Thank you.
Beautiful. And thanks everybody. And make sure I will put all of Xavier's links in there so you can reach out and connect with him and watch him and read his words because there's great power in the words that he shares with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye everybody. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Collective SOULversations podcast. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen, and we hope that you found our chat both inspiring and thought provoking. Your support means everything to us, and we're excited to keep this journey going with you. So make sure that you subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a review and share your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback helps us grow and connect with more wonderful listeners like you. Until next time, stay curious and keep those soulversations flowing.